Dave Smith back with you here on Dave Smith Unleashed, of course, brought to you by our great sponsor, MTS Transportations, for all your truck freight and shipping needs. Make sure you go to them. And thanks to all the subscribers and thanks to all the support we've been getting here. God, got up to around 3,000 subscribers now, and we're kind of rolling here on Dave Smith Unleashed, so I appreciate all of you as well. But right now, let's get out to the special guest on the guest hotline. One of the first people I met when I first decided to get into this talk radio game, and he was so good to me and so helpful when I first got started. The voice of the Lakers and a UCLA graduate, and boy, he's been the voice of the Lakers since 2011 now, if you can believe that. It's the great John Ireland. What's up, John? Good talking to you again.
Dave, how are you?
Oh, I've been great. It's been too long, hasn't it?
Yeah, let me start with a compliment for you. So I follow you on social, and I cannot tell you how many times I marvel at the fact that you will point out something to do with clock management in football before it happens, yes. By the way. And the coaches will sit there with this dumb look on their face and just let valuable seconds run off the clock. If I was a billionaire, Dave, if I was somebody who owned an NFL team, I would hire you as my clock management coach. So you better hope I win the lottery, because if I do, I'm hiring you.
I put out the challenge over the years, John. I've said any NFL team that hires me as their clock management coach, I guarantee you an extra 3 wins a year, and I just want $1 million a year. And that's nothing. An extra 3 wins a year could be the difference between playoffs and not playoffs and Super Bowl. I should ask for $10 million a year, John, but I will fix all the clock management problems. Yeah, I agree.
I don't doubt it. I marvel at the fact that you, and the thing that's amazing about it is you always say, like, the Lions should call timeout now, because then the 2-minute warning would give them an extra play or two, and they just let the thing run.
That's unbelievable.
To the 2-minute warning, and then they run out of time and miss a 70-yard field goal. And I'm like, if they just listened to Dave, they would be fine. But they know no one listens to us, Dave. It's the same story for 30 years.
I remember when Lane Kiffin was coaching USC, Washington had the ball down 2 points, with about 2 minutes to go, and they drove 80 yards down the field and kicked a field goal and won the game in the last second. And Lane still had all 3 of his timeouts and didn't use any of them, and let him bleed the clock down to 3 seconds. And I was in the locker room after the game, and I said, Lane, why didn't you start calling your timeouts? You could have saved time for your offense. And he said, no, that would be sending the wrong message to my defense. If I do that, I'm telling my defense I don't think they can stop him. And I just hit my head on the table.
That's just idiotic.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make any sense. And I like Lane, but that's just dumb.
It's like when Phil was coaching the Lakers, and he's got 11 world championships, and I don't have any, John, for me to criticize him. But he hated fouling. When the Lakers were up 3 in the final seconds, he just wouldn't do it. And like 3 games in a row, I remember Dirk Nowitzki hit a 3, and then Dallas beat him in overtime. I said, Phil, why don't you foul in that situation? He said, no, I'd rather have him make a tough shot. That cheapens the game when you do that. I'm just not going to do it. I never understood it.
Well, and now it's even worse because the three-pointer is such an integral part of the NBA that Mychal Thompson and I say all the time, if you're, and there's a second corollary to this too. Number one, you should always foul if you're up 3 and the other team has the ball and there's 10 seconds or less left. You cannot make an argument to me that you should not foul in that situation. But since a lot of coaches don't foul, the other thing, Dave, is why is anybody standing inside the 3-point line?
Yeah.
Why do you have defenders in the paint? You should escort them to the rim if they want to lay up. You should give them a red carpet. And yet at least 5 times a year, somebody will not foul, give up a 3, the game goes overtime. I've never understood it, but maybe one day someone will realize your brilliance and make you a clock management coach.
And NBA coaches and college coaches used to tell me, well, the reason we don't foul there is because what if they miss a free throw on purpose and then they bat the ball out behind the 3-point line? They make a 3 and we lose. That's a 4-point play. And I said, listen, I've seen 1,000,000 times where a team hit a 3 and then won in overtime. I've been watching basketball all my life. I don't think I've ever seen that happen once, where the ball gets batted out and they have a 4-point play and win the game. I've never seen that happen.
Most coaches, Dave, have now been won over. Most like when Darvin Ham started, he was, I'm not going to foul. By middle of that season, I kept looking at him going, Darv, you got it. I mean, he goes, yeah, I know, I'll foul. And the funny thing is, when you talk to our assistants, we have all these really young, bright assistants now. And I always say to them, hey, if you get a head coaching job and I see you not foul in the last 10 seconds, I'm going to light you up. He goes, no, I'm fouling for sure. And still, we see it every year. Every year they don't foul. It's one of the great mysteries of sports.
And opening weekend in the college football season, John, I was going crazy on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. 20-20 game, Hawaii and Stanford. Hawaii's driving. There's 44 seconds left. They're in field goal range. They ran the clock down to 3 seconds and kicked a field goal and won the game 23-20. Frank Reich, all 3 timeouts on the board, never used any of them.
And he played in the NFL.
Does he think they carry over to the next week? Is that why he didn't call it?
Aren't Stanford guys supposed to be really smart?
You think
so? I guess he didn't get that memo.
The great John.
Yeah, it happens all the time. It's amazing.
It's unbelievable. They don't understand math. And you know what's really funny too, John? When you watch the games, none of the announcers pointed out. You go to the studio halftime show, none of them pointed out. They don't have a clue on how to manage. They never point out the mistakes. I think I'm the only one who does.
Yeah, I do too. Mychal and I, when we're doing games, we go, Mychal, they should foul here, and he goes, they won't. They never listen to us. They won't. It's getting better, but it's definitely still a problem. Most seasons we'll see somebody lose at least one game because of a bad clock.
Yep.
At least one.
At least one. The voice of the Lakers since 2011, John Ireland, a UCLA graduate, Corona Del Mar High School graduate, joining Dave Smith here on Dave Smith Unleashed. And remember, I think my first job in radio, John, this is back, I think, in the early 90s, before even I started the Sports Gods with Joey back at the K-Max. I was the danger boy with you and Steve Mason when I was in Hot Dog on a Stick up in the Fallbrook Mall. And do you remember one of the first assignments? You guys sent me to Georgia Rosenblum's house because the Rams were thinking about moving to St. Louis. And I was on the phone, and I climbed over her fence and got onto the property, and the security guard came down there and threatened to arrest me and kick me off the property, and it was all on the air that day.
Yeah. We can't do any of that stuff anymore. We used to send Dave Singer and put him in like the world's most uncomfortable situations. One time we sent him to a hotel where Albert Bell was at the height of his craziness. He kept getting suspended for doing dumb stuff. And we sent him to give Albert Bell a cake. And asking him, I think we wrote on the cake, please allow yourself to get ejected. They're playing the Angels in a big series. And we thought he was going to get killed, and he just laughed. He was great about it. Another time, we sent Dave to a hotel, and George Karl had the #1 seed in the playoffs. He's coaching the Sonics. And the Lakers were the #8 seed. And the Lakers knocked him out. And when he was down 3-1, Mason and I owned a racehorse, Dave. It was the dumbest decision we ever made. We lost our shirts. We agreed to buy 5% of a racehorse, 2.5% each. And we just got taken to the cleaners. They sent us the bills for everything. But when you win a race in horse racing, they get those giant horse wreaths of flowers.
Yes.
So we had our florist do a horse wreath for George Karl that said, beloved coach, see ya. And had Dave knock on his door at 6:00 in the morning, and his wife answers the door, and she says, can I help you? He goes, I have a gift for the coach. And she starts laughing. She goes, that's no gift. George and Karl comes to the door in his underwear, and he's laughing so hard. He talked to us for 15 minutes. Singer handed him the phone. He ended up doing an interview for 15 minutes. Now, if we did that stuff today, Dave, we would be canceled.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
We'd get in trouble with the team. We'd get in trouble with the league. But back then, it was the Wild West, and we could do anything we wanted, and it was really fun.
I've had all kinds of personalities I've worked with over the years on my show here on Dave Smith Unleashed recently, John. And I always ask them, how'd you get your start? How'd you get started in the radio business? A lot of us kind of fell into it by accident. We weren't broadcast majors or journalism majors, just kind of fell into the thing by accident. So I know you Corona Del Mar and then UCLA, and you worked in Monroe, Louisiana, and Beaumont, Texas. And what made you decide to try to be into the sports journalism field, and how'd you get started?
Unlike those people you were talking about, Dave, who kind of fell into it, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do this when I was 10 years old. I used to turn down the sound on the TV and call games. And the funny thing was my parents were crazy enough to let me do it. So, and I was terrible. Obviously, I was a kid. And then I got to UCLA, and I became the sports director of the campus radio station. And I would do the same thing. So imagine I lived in a fraternity house. And I would turn down the sound on the fraternity. And so 8, 9 guys sitting around. and I would announce I would turn down the sound and I would announce the games, and they would let me do it. And the cool thing was, they not only told me when I was good, which wasn't very often, but when I said something stupid or I was bad, they hammered me. So I was used to it. When I got started, I had already been criticized, raked over the coals. I kind of knew exactly where the bodies were. And so I always felt like those early years when I was a teenager and when I was in college kind of prepared me for what I do now. So I was the opposite of you and some others that kind of discovered it late. I knew I wanted to do this when I was really young. I'll tell you an interesting story. I'm still this way, Dave. I don't sleep. I'm one of those people that just doesn't require a lot of sleep.
I'm like
all right. So I sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours a night if I'm lucky. And so my parents were worried when I was I've been like this since I was in high school. When I was in high school, my parents would make me go to bed at like middle school and high school at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. They look, you can't stay up every night all night. You're never going to sleep. And so I would take a transistor radio for young kids listening. Look it up. It's about the size of a cell phone. I would take a transistor radio and I would put Chick Hearn on calling the Laker games, and I'd put it under my pillow just loud enough so I could hear it, but my parents couldn't hear it. So they thought I was sleeping, but what I was really doing is listening to Chick. And so when I'm calling games now, every once in a while I'll throw a phrase out there that I've never said before. And the only explanation is it's rattling around in the back of my head from those years listening to Chick, and I'm just channeling him. So if you're young and you want to be a sportscaster, don't ever let your parents talk you out of staying up and listening to people call games, because later in life it'll help you.
It's amazing how much you and I are alike, John. I used to fall asleep with the transistor under my pillow as well, so my parents couldn't hear it. I'd listen to Chick and Vince Scully and Dick Enberg with the baseball. Because I'm like you, I could never sleep, so I'd be listening to the games and just eating it up every night.
Well, what we didn't know then, Dave, which is obvious now, is we were all going to sportscaster school and we didn't know it. You know, I didn't know what a bad sportscaster sounded like until I left LA and started my career. You mentioned I went to Monroe, Louisiana, and Beaumont, Texas, and then San Diego, and then I got back to LA. But in those early years in Monroe and Beaumont, I would listen to these announcers and go, God, these guys are terrible. And I thought, I could do this. I could do it just as good as they are. And then I realized, oh, you grew up listening to 4 Hall of Famers. I grew up listening to Dick Enberg and Chick Hearn and Bob Miller and Vin Scully. So we were spoiled, Dave. We knew what great announcers, especially play-by-play guys, were, even though we didn't know we were going to sportscaster school. We all were, which was really cool.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, too, because I was a school teacher and I was a messenger driver. And especially when I was a messenger driver, I would drive around all day in my car listening to sports talk radio. This was like in the early 90s. And I said to myself, these guys are horrible. I said, I could go on the air tomorrow morning with no training and be better than these guys. They're bland, they're monotone, they make mistakes, they don't know anything, they haven't done their homework. And that's what inspired me. And I went to a broadcast teacher of mine, and he said, well, you got to go to a small town like you did, work your way up from Monroe to Beaumont. And I said, well, the heck with that. So I just found a station, AM 870. It was KIEV back then in Glendale. They allowed you to broker time. So I just hustled some sponsors and put myself on the air. That's how I got my start.
That's how Mason started. Mason was a 16-year-old kid in Toledo, Ohio, and he wanted to be a radio DJ. So he basically bought time. He bought 5 minutes of time and did a nightly sportscast until he talked somebody into hiring him, and then he was off and running. So you got to do whatever you got to do to get on the air, right? It's hard. Well, and so good for you guys for doing it that way.
I'm sorry, John. The voice of the Lakers, John Island, also Mason and Island every afternoon on KSPN 710 here in Los Angeles. How long you guys been together now? This was over 30 years ago when I was your danger boy. I think you've been at least 20 over at 710 KSPN now.
Yeah, we started, our first year was in 1994. Wow. And we've had little pockets of time. Mason went to New York for a year, and I got fired for 6 months, and then they brought me back. So we've had little hiccups along the way. But for the most part, I've known Mason longer than I've known my wife. I met Mason in 93, and I met her in 94. So that we've been very, as you know, Dave, there are so many different reasons why you get yanked off the air. And it's just hard to have any longevity in this business.
Oh, yes.
They'll change formats, or you'll get a new program director, or you'll say something stupid that the general manager's wife didn't like, and the next thing you know, you're looking for work. Mason and I have been extremely lucky. We've worked hard. We've worked at it, but we've been able to put ourselves and find ourselves in situations where they just kind of let us go. And we've been able to ride that for more than 30 years. So it's a combination of a little bit of skill, but really, we both say all the time, a whole lot of luck. We've been really, really fortunate.
You know, it's funny. I used to do the UCLA football pregame show with Steve Mason from the press box for a couple of years at UCLA, and we got to know each other and work together a little bit. And it was funny. I was listening to you and Steve one day. This was a couple of years ago, and USC had just lost a football game. When USC is USC still on 710? The games that you still have there?
They're back on 710. Yeah, they left for a while, and now they're back.
So USC had lost a game, and he said, "Oh my God, I had a headache. I couldn't come out of the house until Wednesday. Whenever USC loses, oh my God, it's like the world falling in." I was laughing. Said he used to say the exact same thing about UCLA when I worked with him. There's a guy who knows.
Well, the funny thing, I give him a hard time because when we had the Clippers on our station, he was a Clipper fan.
Oh yeah.
And the minute the Clippers left, he began making Clipper jokes and became a Laker fan. So he adjusts to whoever the rights holder is. He's good at that.
You know, and I used to, when I first got started in sports talk radio and I started progressing, and then I was doing afternoon drive locally, and then I used to think to myself, when I was a kid, I'd listen to Bud Ferrillo every day and Superfan and, all the icons back in the day. I said, what the hell am I doing in this seat? I never thought I would be. Do you ever think to yourself, I'm sitting in Chick Hearn's seat. My God, I used to listen on a transistor radio. What the hell happened here?
Yeah, I think about it all the time. Bill McDonald and I talk about that a lot, that we grew up in the same hometown. We went to the same high school, but he's 5 years older than me. And so we didn't know each other really well when we were in Corona Del Mar. But when we got these jobs, the kind of the comfort of being a Laker announcer, Dave, is that you're never, ever competing for best Laker announcer ever. That job, there's a statue of the guy outside the building. And so we kind of made a conscious decision in the beginning to run towards Chick, not away from him. I think other people get intimidated by the fact that they're in a chair of a Hall of Fame announcer, or they're following Sinatra like we were. But, the truth is, Dave, I'm the fourth radio guy to follow Chick. It was Paul Sunderland, Joel Myers, Spiro Dedes, and now me.
Oh,
but
right.
Everybody thinks, because Chick was such an eclipse of a presence, he was like bigger than the sun. Everybody thinks I'm the one who followed Chick, which I take as a huge compliment. And Bill and I often joke, our number one job is don't screw it up. Don't disrespect the chair and screw it up. And we'll never get to Chick's level, but the fact that he was so candid and said exactly what happened and told the truth has given us a license to really have a lot of fun and do that. So I'm forever indebted to Chick and everything he did, because without him going first and basically being the one, like if the Lakers were playing bad, Chick would say it. If somebody made a dumb pass, Chick would say it. I'm not sure.
He wasn't a houseman.
I'm not sure you could do that in most markets, but we can do it because of him.
Time now to take a break and pay a couple of bills here and hear from our great sponsor, MTS Transportations. Dave Smith Unleashed, brought to you by MTS Transportations. And mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment for all your shipping, trucking, and freight needs. There's only one business to call, and that's MTS Transportations at 800-640-6873. MTS Transportations, 800-640-6873. All right, we're back. Dave Smith with John Ireland, the voice of the Lakers since 2011. I was the danger boy for him and Steve Mason back in the day when I first got started in radio. Now you can hear him every afternoon on KSBN 710 on the Mason and Ireland show. And John, I wanted to ask you this as well. I really like what the Lakers have done in the offseason here. You know, there's so many Laker fans. I don't understand this. Blow it up. You know, after they lost to Denver 2 years in a row, in Minnesota last year in the playoffs, blow it up. Get rid of LeBron. Get rid of everybody. Blow it up and start over. And I said, you know, they're not that far away. Those were competitive series, a lot of close games, and now you know. I know DeAndre Ayton. I know he doesn't have a good motor. He doesn't always play hard, but he's certainly a huge upgrade over Jackson Hayes. He's a career 16-11 guy. Plus, John, he's in a contract year, so you'll probably get the best out of him this year. And Marcus Smart, a guy who's won an NBA championship. And the Lakers lack a little bit of toughness, a little back of defense in the backcourt. So I think those are two great additions. And it cost them a total of $13 million, John. Those are two great signings.
Yeah, and you mentioned DeAndre Ayton, Dave. Let's be honest, he's playing for his financial future.
Yes.
If he plays well, he'll be a 15 to 20 million a year guy. You know, remember, he was the number 1 overall pick in the whole draft.
Ahead of Luka.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Ayton is that if he does well, he sets himself up for the next 10 years to be a 15 to 20 million dollar year guy. But if he doesn't do well, if he wastes this opportunity or for whatever reason wets the bed and it doesn't go well, then he's a $3 to $5 million player for the rest of his career, if that. So that it's very rare when you get that scenario put right in front of you. Malik Monk had it a couple of years ago with the Lakers, and he needed to go off and have a big year in order to get paid, and he did. And he was off and running, and Sacramento gave him a bunch of money. I hope the same thing happens with Ayton. And by the way, let me ask you where you stand on something. The biggest mystery for me, hosting Mason in Ireland and being the Lakers guy, is the percentage of Laker fans, people that want the Lakers to win, that don't want LeBron, that have had it with him. Yeah. It is the number one sports mystery in my life right now. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, I say to people when I'm doing fill-in work, on networks now, and I do these shows occasionally, people are always saying that, Lakers fans, John. I said to it, okay, good. Let's get rid of LeBron. Cut his ass. Let's get rid of him. Okay, now bring in a guy who can average 25, 8, and 8 and shoot 51% from the floor to replace him. Answer me that. He might not be what he was at his best, maybe not as great defensively as he used to be. But you watch him play, 25, 8, and 8 at 40 years old. Looks like he hasn't lost a step. He's still one of the 10 best players in the league. Why would you want to get rid of him?
I don't know, but Dave, listen to our show any day of the week, and you will hear at least 5 people say, I'm sick. I'm sick of LeBron. I don't want him, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, are you watching the games? Did you watch the Olympics when LeBron and Steph basically put Team USA on their back? That was a year ago, Dave. I mean, and the guy is performing at a high. If his name was Dave Ireland, I don't think anybody would complain about him. But because he's LeBron and because he has this giant presence, people, for whatever reason, don't like him. It is the hardest thing for me to explain, and the biggest mystery in my sports life right now, how people don't appreciate LeBron. And I'll tell you this. I was the play-by-play guy for those years after Kobe left. You're going to miss him when he's gone. Yep. Because when he's gone, he puts on a show every night, and basketball is entertainment. And if you want to be entertained, he's one of the top 10 entertainers in the league. And I don't have an explanation for it. I don't understand it. People yell at me every day and say, "Why, John, why don't you get this? We don't want him. We don't like him." And I go, I don't get you. I think you're all idiots. And LeBron's great. And nobody wants to hear it. It's super weird.
I think part of it might be the cult of Kobe. That's what you call these Lakers fans. It's kind of a cult status with Kobe Bryant. And the fact that he's not Kobe, I think, ticks a lot of people off. Remember when they first signed LeBron and they put a mural of him in Los Angeles, a big mural of LeBron, and people X'd it over and said, "Go home, we don't want you, we love Kobe." And I think that could be part of it. The cult of Kobe doesn't want to admit anybody could ever be better than him, and they didn't want LeBron to replace him. The venom when he first came here was unbelievable.
If Kobe were still alive, he would be the first one to say, "You guys are underappreciating LeBron." And I think, Dave, this is going to be LeBron's last year. Even if he plays more seasons, I think it'll be somewhere else, because the Lakers are going to build the team around Luka. And I think Laker fans, especially the ones who are clamoring for him to be out of here, are really going to regret their position a year from now. I think they're going to miss him tremendously.
And he mentioned Tom Brady a few years ago playing effectively till he was 45. I don't see any reason why he couldn't do it. I mean, he's going to be 41 this year. He spends $1 million a year on his training in the offseason. He was elite last year at 40 years old. Why not? I think he can play till 45 effectively in this league as long as he stays in great shape.
Yeah, and I would want him, but he makes the games more fun. He makes them more entertaining. And even when we lose, it's not normally because of LeBron. He carries his weight every night. So that's my number one sports mystery in 2025 is the underappreciation of LeBron by Laker fans, not Laker haters, Laker fans that want the team to win and don't like LeBron. I just don't get those people.
Now, make me J.J. Redick, maybe the coach next year. John, I want to get your thoughts on this. My starting lineup for the Lakers next year would be Luka, Austin Reeves, Marcus Smart, DeAndre Ayton, and LeBron. I think I'd like to see, because, the backcourt last year with Luka and Reeves is not good defensively. They couldn't stay in front of anybody. I think Marcus Smart. No,
and you're on to something here. You're on to something, because think about it, Dave. The Western Conference is loaded with elite scoring guards.
Yes.
Whether it's Anthony Edwards or De'Aaron Fox or Steph Curry or almost Devin Booker, it is, you need a point of attack defender at the start of games to take on those guys. And so your lineup with Marcus Smart in it would be better than that. And I also think Rui Hachimura had his best season last year. I think if you move Rui to the sixth man role, he'll torch the other team's
He's going to kill those second unit guys when he's in there.
Right. So I think you're onto something. I don't know if JJ will do it. I don't know what the dynamic is in the locker room. Like if somebody would get mad if they're not starting, most of those guys will always say the right thing, but you never know. And so we'll see what happens. But I agree with you. I would start Marcus Smart simply to guard all those elite guards that I mentioned. And if you go up and down the West, it is, now Damian Lillard's back in Portland, and you have Steph Curry in Golden State, and you have Devin Booker, and you've got Kyrie Irving. SGA is the best of all of them.
Yep.
And so you're going to need somebody to guard them, and I think Marcus Smart is probably your best candidate, so I agree with you.
How about the new slimmed down Luka? Looks like he's down around 30 pounds when I watched him playing internationally, and he had an injury scare a couple of weeks ago, but looks like he's going to be okay. So, and I was thinking when the Lakers signed him, I think he's going to learn from LeBron, watching the work ethic every day, and maybe he'll stay with him in the offseason, and LeBron will put a foot up his keister and get him in shape. And I think DeAndre Ayton may be the same way. He's going to get a foot up his rear end from LeBron if he's the slow motor and he's not playing hard like he's done throughout his career. So I think this is going to be great for Ayton, and I think Luka coming to the Lakers, learning from LeBron and his work ethic and staying in shape was a good thing.
And Luka is freaky good, Dave. I knew he was a great player, but man, getting to call, his last 30 games. Few people can take over a game like he can. So skinny Luka could be a whole new animal. Yes. Luka was good when he was overweight, but now he's not. I mean, look out.
And the best thing about it, John, the NBA keeps a stat called blow-bys, like which defenders get blown by the guys they're guarding those. And it's a negative stat, but he's led the NBA the last couple of years of getting blown by the guys guarding. So I think the lesser weight coming in is going to be a godsend for him defensively.
Well, and that's another reason to start Marcus Smart. Yes. Going back to your earlier point, is that then Luka would never have to guard one of those guys. And Austin moves his feet, but he's not an elite defender. Austin's better offensively than people give him credit for. But that's why having Marcus Smart, who's a defense-first guard, and who will use his fouls and who will be physical, is a good idea.
Hey, Tom, we're running out of time here on part one, but I know you've agreed to do a part two, which I appreciate. In the part two coming up, John, I put together a list that I did on the podcast a few weeks ago, the top 10 Lakers players of all time, and the 10 most important Lakers players and non-players. I want to see what you see about these two lists that I put up.
Great, let's do it.
That's it for part one with the great John Ireland, of course, the voice of the Lakers, and you hear him with Mason and Ireland every afternoon on KSPN 710. And thanks to the great sponsor again, MTS Transportations, for all your freight, shipping, and trucking needs. And make sure you go to YouTube and follow, subscribe, and comment and listen to Dave Smith Unleashed. And we'll come back, down the road with part 2 of John Ireland right here on Dave Smith Unleashed.